Hey VV Nation, all of YouTube, what's going on? My name is Patrick France, Senior Instructor here at VectorVest. Hopefully you guys are having a great long weekend for Memorial Day. But today, however, I do want to talk about one of my favorite stocks out there. That's right, Gamestop. As we all know, they do have their earnings announcement and also their shareholder meeting coming up on the 1st of June. So I want to make sure we cover that before the announcement, talk about expectations, what you could expect to hear, some of the news we could look forward to hopefully hearing about. And so with that, let's go ahead, jump right into the swing of things, take a look at a couple of headlines here as well, and then talk about the expectations of what we want to see coming from the shareholder meeting and what we may be getting here in the very near future. So if you're ready to learn about it, make sure, as always, smash that like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and let's jump right into it here today. All right, welcome back, everybody. So I first want to start off taking a look at this article, and it's talking about the perfect setup for a short squeeze. Now, if you followed the stock back in January of 2021, you know that there is a lot of social media coverage on it. There is a high short interest, a high cost to borrow, and what we're seeing right now, and this is what the article really goes into, is that we're seeing a very similar situation to what we saw back then in January 2021. But the main difference is that last time the stock price was around $5 a share. This time the stock price is around $100 to $130 a share. So you're starting from a lot higher starting point than what we did back in January. And so this is for the speculation out there. If you're looking for these high momentum stocks, this could definitely be of interest. But it goes into the fact that, GameStop is up almost 30% since May 25th, so only just a few days ago. And then it keeps going down a little bit more. It's talking about how the cost to borrow has gone up significantly, which I discussed over on our live stream that we did on Wednesday with Glenn Tompkins and myself. But it mentions here, one point, the cost to borrow was 104% interest rate to borrow shares to short GameStop. I saw as high as even over 208% at one point. So the cost to borrow is extremely high, which puts a lot of pressure on people wanting to short the stock, because it means they would have to have a lot of cash on hand to be able to short GameStop. So then we continue to go down. It gives a nice little graph here talking about the availability of shares. And as we can see, the red is showing the available shares. The blue is showing the costs associated with borrowing those shares to short. And as you can probably tell, there has been a significant decline, showing less and less shares are being available to be able to short. And the fee continues to climb higher and higher. One of the other things that this talks about is the fact, well, we got to keep scrolling down a little bit, but looking down at the directly registered shares, missed it a little bit, but so far there's about 9 million shares as of January 29th, 2022, directly registered into individuals' names rather than being held by a major institution. So that's roughly about 15% of the current free float already locked up. And this was at the end of January, and people have continued to directly register their shares through ComputerShare. So most likely this is going to be a lot higher by the announcement coming up on the 1st of June. But then one of the other interesting aspects is it talks about the short interest. So as we know, short interest is something that a lot of people talk about when looking at short squeezes. Realistically, anything over 10% is typically considered high. GameStop, it says 20%. I've seen numbers pointing to 25% and a little bit over that over the last couple of days. So this just shows there's an extremely high short interest on this stock, which primes it for a potential short squeeze. So there is a lot of positive signs showing very similar situations to what we were seeing back in January of 2021. Now, this is good. This is awesome. On a short-term basis, this could be a huge money-making opportunity for a momentum trader. But now I want to start switching gears a little bit and taking a look at the longer term or the bigger picture. And this is where we really start to dive into what to expect from the earnings announcement. Hopefully some of the news we'll hear. So let's go ahead and dive into that right now. So as if you've been following along with GameStop or watching any of my previous videos, GameStop has announced partnerships with Loopring, also Immutable X. Both of them are blockchain companies or blockchain developers who are working on ways of making Ethereum network more efficient and also more usable from an end user standpoint. So Immutable X is working on the GameFi aspect of the company. Loopring is working on their NFT marketplace and their wallet and all of that. And hopefully we'll see some new projects that they're working on or get some announcements on that during the shareholder meeting. But one of the things I wanted to start taking a look at, is with all this going on, with the GameStop marketplace just around the corner, which we'll mention here in a few moments, but with the GameStop marketplace, that allows GameStop to potentially be taking in some fees every time one of these NFTs or anytime any transaction occurs on their marketplace. So let's go take a look at some of the money that's been spent already in previous games from Immutable X and see how that could translate into gains or profits for GameStop. So I wanted to start off taking a look at one of their big games, which was Planet Quest. And basically people would buy these planets and then use that to generate income or generate money in Ethereum by playing these games basically. But you have to actually spend money at first to get your land so that way you can start to develop it. And that essentially generates you actual income or actual money that you can convert from Ethereum to US dollars and then have that in your bank account. So looking at it here, the cost of some of these are absolutely outrageous. Some places were selling, or the legendary planets, which are their more exclusive ones, were selling for $25,000. So even if you take a small percentage of that transaction, that's still, and you do that multiple times over and over and over again, that's going to be a huge increase into their profits in the very near future. Well, the reason why I wanted to talk about this one first before jumping into the one that they've announced recently, or Immutable X has announced the land sale for recently, is because I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight on some of the previous land sales that they've had in some of their previous blockchain games. So that way you can see where these are potentially heading and see how much potential money they can make off of these types of transaction fees here. So jumping into Elluvium. Elluvium is their new game that they're coming out with, and it releases on June 2nd. Interesting date to choose, especially with the fact that GameStop has changed their annual shareholder meeting to June 1st. So before I jump into all this, you can probably read it on the screen right now. That gets me thinking. Most likely they have it set for June 1st so they can announce the release of their marketplace, which Immutable X has said will be hosting or will be providing their game on the GameStop marketplace. But GameStop could potentially be getting some transaction fees from all of the land sales that come in from this Elluvium game. So starting to take a look at the highest potential one you can buy, the tier 4 that doesn't get in just to a bidding war basically, but that's starting off at 80 Ethereum. Right now, Ethereum is trading at around $1,800 a share or $1,800 a coin, which would translate to roughly about $144,000 just for the starting price of a tier 4 land plot. Now, it does go down over time as these land sales go live. It decreases 2.5% every minute, I believe. Yeah, per minute for 2 hours until the land is bought up. So it could decrease from that, but it's starting off at $144,000 just for a tier 4 piece of land in this game. Now, the tier 5, the big boy, the bee's knees of the game, if you will, those are going to be an actual bidding. So therefore, it could be a lot more than just 80 Ethereum. And if GameStop potentially gets some of the transaction fees from these, you could see a huge boost in revenue just from this one game. Now, you expand that out to other games out there. As new games start to come into light and start to come on board on the GameStop platform, you could start seeing all these transactions getting little fees here and there, adding more profits to GameStop's company. On top of that, you also collect, or during these games, you get NFTs throughout the game for blueprints to help build new aspects of the game. And so those could be sold, and every time that gets sold, GameStop gets a portion of that sale or transaction fee. Then somebody who's been playing for a while decides, okay, I'm done playing this game. I don't, have the time to spend on it. I'm going to go sell my piece of land, my real estate in the game. And so they sell it, and let's say it goes for a lot more because now it's more developed. They sell it, and all of a sudden, GameStop gets a transaction fee from that as well. So there's all these little transaction fees that could really help boost the bottom line of GameStop that people are really underestimating at this point. So that's why I feel like GameStop, even with its current share price, is still grossly undervalued. But we'll talk about that here in a few moments. So that kind of does it for what we should be hopefully expecting to hear come June 1st. I would love to hear that their marketplace or NFT marketplace is now going live. So that way it can take advantage of the Elluvium land sales from day one. Also with that, they did announce in the last quarterly statement that their marketplace will be coming live in the second quarter of this year. So that gives very little time left remaining for their marketplace to launch. So it should be any day now. The fact that they have this set up the day before Elluvium land sales start kind of leads to the idea that most likely we'll be seeing the launch of that on that first day. So on top of that, we also have that positive news about the stock split dividend that they've announced. So the vote comes up once again at the shareholder meeting. We should find the results of that there. And most likely that'll get approved from everything I've been seeing on social media and from other GameStop enthusiasts. Most likely we will see that pass. I just find it really, really hard to believe that we wouldn't see that decision being made to increasing the available shares. And after they announce that that decision got approved, then they can announce that stock split, which a lot of people are predicting a 7-for-1 split. Now, you also have the GME America coming up, which could be a whole separate subsidiary of GameStop, which we don't have enough time to get into today, but that could be, part of the share split could also be getting new shares of the GME America subsidiary or GME Entertainment LLC. So that could be one of the possibilities we hear from the annual shareholder meeting as well, which would all bring a lot of new eyes into GameStop and also a lot of investor attention, which could increase the price just on that news alone. So now let's get into the negative a little bit. So we know that there's a lot of big news coming out very, very shortly for GameStop that could really help the company explode and become a true tech giant, which for the last year and a half, everybody said is a dying brick and mortar. Anybody who's been following the company closely knows this is false because we know that GameStop has been working to become more of an e-commerce tech giant rather than just that old brick and mortar style. So most of the analysis or analysts' opinions that you see nowadays don't take this into account, and therefore, in my opinion, they hold less credibility. But at the same time, you have to go based off the numbers. So let's go jump into the graph real quick. And there we go. And taking a look at the GameStop graph. So what we see here is the price shown in candlesticks. Let me go ahead and clean it up a little bit for everybody out there. Apologize. We have a 3 and 8 exponential moving average. Then below that, I have MACD, and then below that, earnings per share. So as we know off of that last earnings announcement for the end of 2021, we did see a decline in earnings, and that's because they increased their inventory. So they spent a lot of money increasing their inventory. They've also spent a lot of money developing their marketplace, their wallet, everything that we're seeing starting to come to light now. So yes, they did miss earnings. They have had negative earnings. So therefore, the expectation, of course, based off of historicals is going to be lower here, which is what we see with the earnings per share number here. So the actual numbers for earnings per share this quarter coming up could be not that great. Just wanted to throw that out there. They could have a negative earnings. They could have loss in revenue, but we have seen revenue increasing, so that's a positive sign. But we could see a negative earnings coming out this quarter, which, may look bad at first, but the main thing I'm really focused on with GameStop's earnings performance coming up is what they're announcing and what we're going to be seeing in the very near future with their marketplace, their partnerships, and all of that there. So I'm expecting or hoping to see what they say outweigh a negative earnings report coming out in this June 1st earnings call. So there's a lot of positives to focus on going forward, and more of the negative aspect comes from looking at the historicals. So that is the negative, but you have to be honest with it, especially if you're invested in it. You have to be honest and look at both aspects of it. So there is that, but at the same time, I greatly expect to see the future and what their announcements are far outweigh the impact of a negative earnings per share number. And also going forward, I would expect to see that earnings per share start to increase at a rapid rate based off of all the analysis I've done over the last year and a half with some of the other videos I've talked about with GameStop. But looking at it right now, this is Friday's close. We're not in the office on Monday, so this is recorded on Friday. But right now, GameStop has had an explosive last couple of days, bouncing off that bottom, creating higher lows. And now we're looking for higher highs. So at this point, a high above 200 breaks that level of resistance. And then at that point, we're looking at roughly about 220 or so, 225. And then we start to push those numbers if we can break through that at roughly the 300, 350 mark, and then retesting those all-time highs. One of the other things I want to do is add on volume here. And I always like taking a look at volume because volume shows conviction. If ever you have a big up day or a big down day, you want to check the volume to make sure that there's actual, interest in the stock at that point, showing a lot of people buying or selling, or a lot of people buying or making transactions on it at that point. So therefore, this most recent run up that we saw, just like we did here, you do have an increase in volume, which shows a lot of conviction behind the move. And therefore, things are looking pretty good. Now, if we zoom down, let's say into a 3-month here, taking off the earnings per share so we can focus on what we see on a shorter time frame. The 3 and the 8 exponential moving average, which is a great indication of short-term momentum, crossed over to the upside 2 days ago, or as of the 25th of May. And so far, we're seeing the stock continue to climb, pulling back a little bit as we speak right now, but market still has a lot of time to go before we see the close. So most likely, we'd expect to see this continue to move higher, especially coming into that earnings announcement on the 1st of June or next Wednesday. Looking at MACD also turned positive just a few days or a day or two before the 3 and the 8 crossover. And therefore, on a short-term basis, we are starting to see a short-term uptrend. Now, from a longer-term standpoint, I do want to see the MACD and the signal line both cross above that level of 0, which would indicate a longer-term uptrend forming in GameStop as well. So that's going to do it for today. I don't want to make things too long. Hopefully get you guys excited. If you're not already invested in GameStop, this may be the last time we see it at these prices. So if you've been interested in getting into GameStop, you may want to look at doing it very, very soon. As always, not financial advice, and every investor has to make their own decisions. So if you do decide to buy it, that is your investment decision there. Just want to make sure we're clear on that. So just to quickly recap, on a short-term basis from this chart perspective, things are looking pretty positive. You're seeing an increased buying activity going on, pushing the stock higher. You see the MACD turning positive on a short-term basis, the 3 and the 8 turning positive on a short-term basis. You have earnings announcement coming up on the 1st of June, which they could release a lot of positive news that could help drive the stock price even higher. And also from a technical standpoint, or from the squeeze perspective, if you will, there is similar situations or similar aspects that we're noticing to the current GameStop numbers that we were seeing back in January of 2021, which could indicate a potential squeeze coming into GameStop once again for all those momentum traders out there. So as always, thank you all for coming and hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure, as always, smash that like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, take care, adios, and toodles.
Yeah.